Terrence Terry Sloan, born in New York City, was a child marvel because of his genius intellect, while being extremely athletic and brave when facing physical danger. Remarkably enough, he went on to graduate from high school at age 11, and after a year in college, he received an honorary degree for finishing all his academic studies early. So Terry next began to concentrate his time on athletics, which he excelled in. Succeeding this, he became a successful business leader, which consequently left him bored, since life offered little challenge. So, despite the wealth and popularity he accumulated, death felt more appealing to him. However, his suicidal intentions was ironically interrupted when he witnessed a young woman trying to commit the act by jumping off a bridge. So Terry quickly jumped in after her, rescuing the drowning damsel in distress named Wanda Wilson from a watery grave after she gave up on life when her mother died and little brother Billy joined the Purple Dagger gang. Interestingly, Terry decided to take matters into his own hands and help the young woman by confronting the Purple Dagger gang after a meeting they were holding, as Terry disguised himself in a red suit with a green tonic that had a golden emblem imprinted with the words "Fair Play," because he disliked that he was born with so many advantages in life while so many lacked, after expecting the world to treat people equally. So he hated that wasn't the case, which made the world not fair. So he made it his mission to make it fair, only to discover the gang members were only young teens being manipulated by an older gentleman calling himself Big Shot, who was accompanied by his henchmen before engaging in battle when Big Shot ordered his henchmen to attack him. Impressively, however, Terry defeated the goons, despite them being in possession of knives and guns. Unsurprisingly, the coward named Big Shot tried to next send the teens to fight his battle, which failed miserably when they questioned his fearlessness. So Terry decided to give Big Shot one last chance to be a man by challenging him to a one-on-one fist fight in an empty lot near the Purple Dagger shack, which Big Shot would accept and go on to easily lose after trying to cheat his way to victory by using a knife. Interestingly enough, the teens still had faith in their boss and wanted Terry to challenge him in intellect, which Big Shot proved more of a disgrace than ever before, so the teens embarrassed him by degrading him when they put a purple cone on his head to symbolize his lack of intelligence, while Terry next banished him from ever setting foot in his town again. Furthermore, the teens were going to give Terry the nickname Mr.Terrific while making him their new mentor. Thereafter, Terry, now Mr. Terrific, would get rid of the Purple Dagger Clubhouse and build a new hangout for them in another location called Fair Play Club that acted as a youth center in order for the teens to put their gang life behind them, while Mr. Terrific continued his life as a crime fighter, since he now found something in life that interests him. Succeeding this, after countless solo superhero adventures, Mr. Terrific will be recruited into the superhero teams known as the All-Star Squadron, as well as the Justice Society of America. Even though he felt outclassed by the superpowered heroes, nevertheless, he remained until the day he retired and went on to become an instructor in English literature at Gateway University. However, when he briefly decided to come out of retirement, now an old man, Mr. Terrific, also known as the Man of 1,000 Talents and the Defender of Fair Play, would sadly lose his life after discovering the identity of a traitor during a joint conference at the JLA satellite headquarters between the Justice League and the Justice Society, when suddenly one of the satellite walls exploded with the force of a nuclear missile, sucking Mr. Terrific's lifeless body into the vacuum of space, before it was later shockingly revealed his cause of death was strangulation, which was caused by his arch nemesis Roger Romaine, infamously known as the Spirit King, who took control of the Flash J. Jarrett's body in order to commit the heinous act, and next made his escape through the Justice League's transmatter machine while the Justice Society was on hot pursuit. So the Spirit King released his hold on J. Jarrett and went on to strategically possess the body of Superman's cousin, Power Girl Kara Zor-El, in order to next transfer himself into the Green Lantern Alan Scott, so he could battle and exploit the advantage points to possess the sorcerer Dr. Fate Kent Nelson, which would cause J. Jarrett to seek out help from the powerful divine entity representing vengeance, the Spectre, who had Jim Corrigan as its host. After the Spirit King captured his team and held them captive in Dr. Fate's tower in Salem, while anticipating the arrival of the Spectre, which he intended on possessing to obtain ultimate power, while sadistically reanimating the corpse of Terry Sloan to help him battle J. Jarrett and the Spectre, while revealing the ruler of the netherworld of this Shaitan the Eternal taught him how to increase his powers before she orchestrated the death of Terry Sloan in order to lure out her arch nemesis, the Spectre. Surprisingly, the spirit of Terry Sloan suddenly manifested to aid Jay Jarrett, and the Spectre defeat the Spirit King and the reanimated corpse of Terry Sloan itself, and help hurl them within the depths of hell, while the Spectre next sealed the opening of the gateway shut to end the terror. Furthermore, Terry will bid his farewell and head back to the afterlife where he felt he truly belonged. So as time progressed, life will present to us Michael Holt, also born as a child prodigy with an astronomical intelligence quotient, where by the time he was 6 years old, he had read and assimilated the works of the Pantheons in theoretical physics, while 2, growing up as a natural athlete. Unfortunately for his older brother, he was born severely retarded and died at age 15 without ever knowing anything but Michael's love. Succeeding this, Michael, who had a bit of a temper, still became a master martial artist in 6 disciplines, followed by being an Olympic decathlon gold medal winner, as well as a scholar while being an atheist, who was fluent in 11 different languages that accumulated doctorates and master degrees from several medical and scientific fields, like PhDs in physics, engineering, law, psychology, chemistry, political science, and mathematics, while later as an entrepreneur becoming a multi-millionaire from his company Holt Industries, also known as Cyberware. However, he too hadn't found a purpose in life until he met his wife in grad school, the confident, God-fearing, and brilliant AI engineer Paula, who was studying at Harvard Law on foreign criminal policy. However, sadly, after being late for church one Sunday morning when she got into an argument with Michael about him being arrogant or not having open mind to the belief of a higher power, she and their unborn child were tragically killed in a car accident, which next caused Michael to contemplate leaving an unjust world he'd grown to hate, while at that moment disregarding the threats of a trio of hoodlums out to rob him for all his valuables, when suddenly the Spectre appeared, causing the youth to panic and run in fear from the frightening, powerful being. Following this, the Spectre revealed he was drawn to Michael's self-destructive thoughts that reminded him of Terry Sloan, which Michael had so much in common with. So the Spectre went on to convince Michael in taking up Sloan's mantle to continue his legacy, which would simultaneously give Michael something to live for. Subsequently, Michael eventually agreed to be the new Mr.Terrific, and next decided to go and find the troubled teens who probably tried to rob him and give them proper guidance, only to discover they were being manipulated by an older gentleman with nefarious purposes called Doctor. Unsurprisingly, the gang leader was accompanied by 2 of his trusted henchmen, Squid and Lobobo, who went on to attack Mr.Terrific, who beat the snot out of them, despite them being in possession of a gun and a baseball bat, which impressed the young trio who was observing the confrontation. So Doctor and his men retreated, only for the Spectre to be waiting for them around the corner with deadly intent, when surprisingly Mr.Terrific stopped him from exacting harsh punishment, since they didn't fall under the category of his wrath. However, in order for Mr.Terrific to secure their survival, the Spectre told him he had to put his soul on the line. So Mr.Terrific agreed, believing there's a chance he could turn any one of them good. So in that moment of his decision, the memory of his brother and Paula's strength turned his bitterness into resolve. So he redirected his intellect and resources towards the pursuit of justice in all its forms, and went on to sell his company to Bruce Wayne's company, Wayne Tech, and retire from the corporate world, as he went on to invent artificial intelligent floating robotic globes he calls T-Spheres, programmed to follow him while monitoring law enforcement and emergency frequencies, and serving as cameras or deadly weapons that's said to astonishingly be capable of accelerating upwards of 14 miles per second, as well as being able to project holograms, laser grids, data links, gravity well, powerful electrical charges, and self-destruct, amongst other applications. Meanwhile, the T-Spheres that hum when they move could also be used as levitation devices that transport Mr.Terrific around, while being controlled by his encephalic broadcaster Neuralink T-Mass, that is his interface, made of microscopic nanites that disappear and reappear at will, as well as having many other capabilities, like being able to adjust to see along the entire electromagnetic spectrum, while also working as a communication system, and being able to cloak along with his T-suit that uses metamaterials woven onto it from all forms of electronic detection, including photographs and audio recordings, being that it uses refractive frequencies to make him invisible to optic waves, which is one of the reasons he's considered the third smartest man alive. Moreover, when not engaging in heroism, Mr. Terrific will be either studying the ninth dimension that he theorized May was the source of legends of divine realms, or he was working as a spokesperson and consultant on industrial espionage security measures at Tyler Coat, which is the superhero Hourman Rex Tyler's chemical company, while in return he had the company fund his youth center. Moreover, Mr. Terrific would manage to calibrate a portal into the rift of the ninth dimension that showed him visions from his future and past before erasing his memory of the experience and forcing him out. Succeeding this, after countless solo superhero adventures, Mr. Terrific will be recruited by the second Sandman, Sanderson Hawkins, to join the Justice Society of America, where he built a close relationship with the third Doctor Mid-Nite, Peter Alton Cross, as well as second-guess his denial of a higher power when he, along with the Flash J. Garrett, was on the floating city of Thalrasa, home to one of the 7 devils that plagued Thanagar. However, he admitted he would never truly believe God exists until he saw his wife smile again. Moreover, Mr. Terrific will be seen doing reconnaissance on a mission to Black Hawk Island in the South Pacific to help his team take down the supervillain terrorist Cobra, the harbinger of Kali Yuga, who was a self-styled messiah with a following of thousands willing to die in order to usher in a new age of chaos. Nevertheless, our heroes prevented him from incinerating every major capital city on the planet using an array of low Earth orbit anti-ballistic X-ray satellites. If all participating countries in the NATO alliance don't turn over their heads of state to him. Succeeding this, after countless missions, the JSA would surprise Mr. Terrific by voting him as the new leader of the team, which was around the time the anti-hero Black Adam was given a second chance to redeem himself by being recruited. Following this, our heroes, specifically Mr. Terrific and Doctor Mid-Nite, will be shockingly captured by Terry Sloan's beautiful but deadly granddaughter, Roulette, and brought to an underground facility 3 miles below the surface in Nevada to be participants in the 5th anniversary event for supervillains, to watch superheroes forcefully go against each other to the death, with Mr. Terrific being put against Dr. Mid-Nite in a match of intellect within the brain room that had life-size hologram chess pieces with only 15 seconds to complete a move using verbal input, and whoever gets checkmate will receive 10,000 volts pumped through their body. However, when Mr. Terrific was on the verge of winning, he instead linked his T-mask with Dr. Mid-Nite's info goggles to guide him in causing a stalemate, which in turn would cause the game to reset while temporarily releasing our heroes from their electric chair towards freedom. Interestingly enough, Roulette, now defeated after her event was ruined, suddenly teleported them back to the JSA headquarters, along with the other captive members who also managed to escape, as she went on to plan her revenge against her grandfather's predecessor. So not long after, one night during a mission, Mr. Terrific will meet Batman for the first time, not knowing he was actually Bruce Wayne, as Batman realized his night vision lenses had trouble seeing Mr. Terrific, but only an outline of him. Nevertheless, Mr. Terrific will go on to gain Batman's respect for his prowess, as they both had something in common by being used to emotionally detaching themselves from situations, especially ones they could relate to. Succeeding this, Mr. Terrific, along with other members of the superhero community, will find themselves under the mind control of the Ultra Humanite, who took control of the genie Thunderbolt and made a wish for a world created in his image. Luckily, a member of the new incarnation of the JSA, Shaquem Thunder, managed to free Mr. Terrific, along with other mind control superheroes, by frying the brain cap chip attached to them, by using a device that let off an electric charge, so our heroes could band together and defeat the Ultra Humanite and his hordes of gorillas. Ironically, however, our heroes will later be once again displaced in reality not theirs, and be brought to the year 1943 by a time cube belonging to the supervillain time traveler Black Barracks, when surprisingly Mr. Terrific will encounter the original Mr. Terrific, Terry Sloan, who will come to the conclusion that Michael, who was accompanied by Hawkgirl, came from the future. Nonetheless, they joined forces to go after Black Barracks, who was terrorizing the people of Washington, looking for a power source to reactivate his time cube, when shockingly, Terry threatened to end his own life in order to erase Black Barracks from existence, after Terry revealed he was Black Barracks' ancestor, and if he dies, Black Barracks' birth will be prevented from happening, when suddenly Michael tackled Terry, attempting to stop him from going through with his plan, which caused a now angered Terry to fight Michael, but not allowing him to secure the future by sacrificing himself. Interestingly enough, Hawkgirl would agree with Terry and help him accomplish his goal. Luckily, however, Black Barracks decided to believe Terry and comply with his demand by leaving back to his timeline. Thereafter, Terry revealed it was all a ruse and the gun was unloaded, as well as being relayed to Black Barracks. Following this, our heroes would get the time cube up and running, and next bid Terry goodbye, where they would eventually make it back home to their time period of 2003. Succeeding this, Mr. Terrific would get his leg broken when one of the most evil beings the universe has ever known, Mordru, the Dark Lord, usurped the powers of Dr. Fate and attacked the JSA, turning Sandman into a sand monster, who went on to severely injure Mr. Terrific before knocking him unconscious. So the Flash J. Jarrett recovered him along with other heroes from the battlefield and took them to the JSA infirmary until shockingly the Spirit of Wrath, Eclipso, suddenly showed up and attacked the facility. So J. Jarrett moved our injured heroes across the country to Doctor Mid-Nite's lab in Portsmouth, Washington to be tended to. Fascinatingly enough, although Mr. Terrific was incapacitated, he was able to use his T-spheres to group his thought waves and broadcast them through a hologram of himself up until he was able to regain his strength. So as more time progressed, Mr. Terrific and Doctor Mid-Nite will witness the new host of the Spectre, Hal Jordan, being defeated and deprived of his powers by the Spirit King when they were in the church. Interestingly, Doctor Mid-Nite could only see a divine-like blue aura of the Spirit King, while Mr. Terrific saw him clearly before he tried to subdue him with a laser grid, before they made their escape with an injured Hal Jordan. Subsequently, the Spirit King will go on to once again possess J. Jarrett, but this time use him to try and kill the new Mr. Terrific. Luckily, Dr. Mid-Nite knows the invisible blue aura emitting from J. Jarrett, while Alan Scott aided Mr. Terrific, which gave Mr. Terrific the leverage he needed to try and fight the Spirit King out of J. Jarrett before saving Alan Scott's life, who was on the brink of death. Unfortunately, an attack from the power of the Speed Force to Mr. Terrific's chest stopped his heart from beating, so he was quickly rushed to Dr. Mid-Nite's lab, where Dr. Mid-Nite and Owlman tried to revive him. However, at that moment, Mr. Terrific was sadly suffering a heart attack and went through a near-death experience where he saw his beloved wife, Paula, in the afterlife. So now, overflooded with emotions, Paula assured him her love for him still exists and his mission on Earth wasn't completed, while also revealing their unborn son was with her, and one day they'll all be together by the grace of God, before Mr. Terrific was revived back to life and testified to Dr. Mid-Nite about seeing his wife smile once again. So following this, Mr. Terrific would join Dr. Mid-Nite that Sunday morning to give going to church a chance. Not long after, Batman would invite Mr. Terrific to the Batcave, where he revealed a lot of the upgrades of his communication system came from Mr. Terrific's cyberware design company, and he wanted him to examine his international criminal database, which in turn, Mr. Terrific used that opportunity to seek personal advice from Batman. Succeeding this, Mr. Terrific's team will meet the Justice League of America for the first time, and next join forces to aid President Lex Luthor and Mari McCabe, also known as the superhero Vixen, take on the concentrated psychic force Dr. Bedlam, who was accompanied by his android animates in Arusha, Tanzania, unusually attacking the Pan-African Conference on World Hunger, while proclaiming to represent the rogue planet Apocalypse, before suddenly ending his attack. Following this, our heroes headed back to the JSA headquarters, where Batman surprisingly and oddly questioned Mr. Terrific's competence with keeping classified and personal data flowing between their teams secured, since the JSA headquarters have been attacked several times, which Mr. Terrific went on to point out the hypocrisy in Batman's statement, since the Justice League headquarters had its own share of attacks in the past. Surprisingly enough, tempers would flare, and suddenly the Justice League and the Justice Society will begin fighting each other without cause, which will later be revealed the astral being, Dr. Bedlam, who could project his thoughts into other people's bodies and use them like puppets, was forced by the supervillain Johnny Sorrow, and Despero, who is an extraterrestrial dictator that also had mind control abilities, was behind it all in his quest to conquer Earth by channeling the demon spirits of the 7 deadly sins to possess our heroes, with the demon of pride taking over Mr. Terrific. Luckily, with the help of reserve members of the Justice League and the wizard Shazam, the 7 deadly enemies of man was rechained, thus freeing our heroes, who went on to defeat Johnny Sorrow and Despero in a long and excruciating battle, where President Luthor was also freed from Despero's possession. So thereafter, President Luthor went on to provide the JSA with a new headquarters in Manhattan after the prior one was destroyed. Succeeding this, when the all-seeing artificial intelligence satellite orbiting the Earth called the Brother Eye was remapping the multiverse to help create a new Earth for the super being from another dimension named Alexandra Luthor, Mr. Terrific, and Black Lightning Jefferson Pierce will be part of a team assembled by Batman to play a critical role in helping stop Brother Eye by frying its memory bank circuits and activate its limited propulsion system to throw it out of orbit, which sent it crashing towards Earth. To seeing this, Mr. Terrific will step down as chairman of the JSA after he was brought on by Alan Scott to be his advisor and analyst, known as the White King's Bishop at Checkmate, which is an elite international intelligence global peace organization trying to maintain the balance of world power, located at a castle in an undisclosed location within the Swiss Alps. Moreover, during this time period, he was dating the Black Queen of Checkmate, Sasha Badeau, head of operations, before Alan Scott stepped down as White King, which is head of intelligence, and nominated Mr. Terrific to be his replacement. That was approved by all the ambassadors of Checkmate, while Amanda Waller served as his White Queen. However, Mr. Terrific's new position brought a conflict of interest between him and his lover due to their high but separate positions in the organization. Furthermore, Mr. Terrific will interestingly create from his T-spheres an AI construct of a reformed Bella Riva inmate possessing a genius level IQ named Thinker as his White King's Bishop, while linking him to the Checkmate Intel Hub before revealing it to the Black King of Checkmate, Talib Ben Khalid. Moreover, Mr. Terrific time in the organization was mostly spent trying to bring down the resurfaced supervillain Cobra, before eventually stepping down from his position years later to return as a full member of the JSA. Where at the brownstone of the JSA, the superhero Obsidian Todd Rice will be trapped in a mysterious small oval-shaped device. So Mr. Terrific and Doctor Mid-Nite will go on to try and figure out what happened to him. Unfortunately, however, Mr. Terrific will next make the crucial mistake in deciding to work alone, while allowing Doctor Mid-Nite to go out and aid the JSA during a mission, which consequently saw Mr. Terrific getting quickly stabbed in the back by the psychopathic homicidal murderer Jeremy Karn, also known as Karn Evil, posing as a superhero good guy called All-American Kid that was part of two young new superheroes in training Mr. Terrific was keeping an eye on. So when the JSA returned, they shockingly discovered Mr. Terrific's unconscious bloody body and rushed him to the infirmary, where Dr. Mid-Nite will begin immediate operation, with blood being donated from each of the JSA members as Dr. Fate uses magic to transform the fluids into Mr. Terrific's blood type. Sadly, however, after the intense procedure, they would be unsuccessful in saving Mr. Terrific's life, and Dr. Mid-Nite will pronounce him dead. Following this, the Green Lantern Alan Scott will go on to keep his body on stasis so it doesn't decompose, while Dr. Fate uses sorcery to try and create a spell to revive him, since they still had hope, which fortunately was eventually fulfilled, and Mr. Terrific went on to go after Karn Evil, who tried to rid the JSA of their key player so he doesn't forward the plan of the one he's working for called Shadow of War, from using Alan Scott's son Obsidian as his darkness engine, capable of producing a field of power nullification. Nonetheless, Mr. Terrific defeated Karn Evil by using his T-spheres. Thereafter, Mr. Terrific will be unenthusiastically but temporarily prescribed to a wheelchair by Dr. Mid-Nite, but soon after, back in action after defeating the German super soldier capable of flight and withstanding bullets along with high temperatures, Albrecht Krieger, also known as Captain Nazi, where Mr. Terrific uses T-spheres that was added with a new levitation captivity field which still needed testing since it simultaneously released a high voltage electric shock. Following this, Mr. Terrific, along with Wildcat Ted Grant, would also defeat Captain Nazi's men, the Fourth Reich, which consisted of Hunter, Count Berlin, and Captain Swastika, before the other members of the JSA, Jennifer Pierce, also known as Lightning, and the third Mr. America, Jeffrey Graves, regroup with our heroes after defeating the remaining members of the Fourth Reich, Captain Murder and Green Ghoul. So as time progressed, Victor Stone, famously known as Cyborg, would suggest to Mr. Terrific that he monitor his silent partner in investee, the superhero John Henry Irons, better known as Steel, who just did a press conference on the opening of his company, Steelworks, while dangerously revealing his superhero identity to the public. So Mr. Terrific paid him an unexpected visit at his headquarters, where he would warn him about his new ventures in uncharted territory. However, John would challenge Mr. Terrific to a sparring match to prove he was more than capable of handling his own. However, Mr. Terrific challenged him in a hand-to-hand combat without using technology or weapons instead, to see how true that was, as he next used John's armor code to disassemble the suit. Impressively enough, John would prove to be a formidable opponent. So as time progressed, Balzar, the Superman from Earth 2, who was accompanied by Clark Kent's LGBTQ son, John Kent, would have Red Tornado, Lois Lane, also from Earth 2, contact Mr. Terrific to vouch for him so John and his mother could believe him when he revealed an evil Kryptonian doppelganger of Superman from an alternate universe called Ultraman was murdering Kal-Els from across the multiverse while using a device specifically tuned to Kal-Els that could weaken him at a cellular level. Furthermore, not long after, the LGBTQ Tim Drake Robin will also request Mr. Terrific's help in finding the presumably dead Batman after he was displaced to another universe by his own android, Failsafe, that reprogrammed and used Toyman Winslow Shots' multiverse gun. So Mr. Terrific went on to configure his experimental multiversal equipment while providing Robin with a multiversal suit tied to the main universe for safety, along with tether discs to transfer other misplaced survivors back to the universe. Nevertheless, Robin will manage to capture Toyman and have him trace the universe's multiversal energy signature that will lead him to Batman's whereabouts. Moreover, Mr. Terrific next provided Robin with a new redesign of the multiversal suit, added with a Neuralink face mask to pinpoint Batman's exact location, which unsurprisingly Robin will go on to find him and successfully bring him back home. Following this, Mr. Terrific would evaluate Batman's condition to make sure there wasn't no anomalies, before going on to evaluate Superman at his Fortress of Solitude during an unrelated incident. Moreover, Batman, now within his lunar bat cave on the moon, will receive a surprise visit from Mr. Terrific, accompanied by his T-Spheres that Batman disliked after they once threw his computer's collaboration off. However, Mr. Terrific's sudden appearance was due to his halt with investigating the multiverse so he could continue in assisting Batman with data he gathered from other worlds and tracking the exact dimensional frequencies of a dark energy that will later be known as the Batman Who Laughs and his minions. So thereafter, Mr. Terrific will go on to save the life of Dr. Ryan Cho, also known as the Third Adam, while after Mr. Terrific, along with Dr. Magnus, came with the idea to integrate Mr. Terrific's T-Spheres with what was left of Magnus's group of robotic superheroes with human intelligence and personalities called the Metal Men, and added flight to the mechanism in order for them to get inside the Dark Earth and shift them out of phase to slow down the amount of nightmarish creatures from emerging. While Mr. Terrific, along with the Green Lantern Hal Jordan, went on to take down Thanagor aliens in Space Sector 2682 in their attempts to obtain Ninth Metal so they could defeat the dark creatures that managed to come through. Succeeding this, Mr. Terrific will create the means of having a dimensional portal to access his new private sanctum, which he calls the T-Sanctuary, located at fixed coordinates within the 9th dimension, after accidentally perfecting the technology of infinite fractal mechanics that allows his sanctuary to bridge folds in dimensional space. Meanwhile, he decides to open a branch of non-profit scientific research and development facilities while having 14 satellites around the world, with his main Conscientia Institute being located in Santa Barbara, California, being renowned for its cutting edge of Earth's future as a Fortune 500 company. Moreover, during his solo adventures living in Los Angeles, he would provide the LAPD with a way they can contact him securely, which would lead him to battle and defeat the supervillain Dominic Lance, better known as Brainstorm, a one scientist that accidentally transformed himself into a transhumanistic being that ingests intelligence, artificial or otherwise, while mind-controlling local citizens when his intelligence spikes in order to harvest them until he finally is able to become complete as the All-Mind. Moreover, Brainstorm revealed it was he who was responsible for the death of Mr. Terrific's wife after draining her car's AI driving system, which caused the vehicle to malfunction and crash, along with several hundred other vehicles that day within a 50-mile radius. However, in theory, it was believed by Doctor Mid-Nite himself before he became a superhero, he lost his vision and next drugged while being forced behind the wheel of a car that caused him to leave the scene of an accident that he caused that killed Mr. Terrific's wife. Moreover, as time passed, Mr. Terrific will be surprisingly summoned within the 9th dimension, where he aided a resistant force of diverse aliens to fight against members of a cool warrior alien race known as the Krell that only knew conquest. Succeeding this, Mr. Terrific, who was nursing 2 broken ribs, fought and defeated the tech-stealing, inexperienced in combat psychopath called the Tomorrow Thief, who can control molecular bonds. And then Donald Leeson, also known as the supervillain Digitus, who was Mr. Terrific's disgruntled board member of his company, blinded by jealousy after Mr. Terrific made a 15-year-old with an IQ of 192 named Jamal Mason CEO of Holt Industries instead of him, so he augmented himself into a robot being capable of using the predictive algorithm of 1,000 supercomputers to calculate and counter his opponent's defensive and offensive attacks, while having the ability to control other AI, with a mission to destroy Mr.Terrific's companies. While lastly, the homicidal lunatic Miles Dalton, the CEO of Dalton Technologies in London, England, whose goal was to weaponize the world, while equipped with a 10-foot suit of biochemical battle armor. That being said, Michael Holt is DC Comics' second Mr. Terrific.